Yo, what's going on, everybody? My name is Tyler, aka Mind of a Nerd. Welcome back to the official Nerd Talk channel, and we are back for another installment in original versus remakes. And today we are covering the second half of Monster Month, and of course, we already talked about Godzilla, and today we are talking about the eighth wonder of the world himself, King Kong. I did not have a Kong shirt, so I have a Jurassic Park shirt. Jungle creatures. There are dinosaurs in one of these, well, both of these movies. So it
Yeah.
works. Very excited to get into this. So without further ado, let's get into it. Starting with the original King Kong from 1933. So, of course, King Kong was released in 1933, which is insane. It's kind of insane that King Kong is so much of an older movie than Godzilla is.
Mhm.
You would have thought that Godzilla would have came first, but I guess not. So the original King Kong was directed by Marion C. Cooper and Ernest B. Shustak. I'm sorry, I probably butchered that name entirely. And it tells the story of a film crew going to a uncharted island known as Skull Island to make a film, and what they find there might just cost them their lives. So I saw this movie for the first time back in 2021 when Godzilla vs Kong was coming out. I hadn't seen this or the original Godzilla, and when I watched it, I was like, it kind of it was. I watched this one first before Godzilla, and this is what I was expecting the original Godzilla to be, where it was like insanely violent and over the top. The original King Kong is one of those old movies that, like, sure, you can say it's dated. I think it holds up. And I think it's actually really good. Like, sure, you can sit there and nitpick all the technical aspects, but the movie was made in 1933. It's a really fun monster adventure movie. It has a very tight runtime of just over 90 minutes, and it works. I think it works. It's such a fun time. The island, Skull Island, it's awesome. It's a fun, little setting to go on. And the story, I really like the story of a film crew. Like, they're just desperate to make this film that they will risk people's lives. You know, and of course, Kong himself, he's awesome. This is definitely the kind of movie that you don't care about the characters and you're waiting for Kong to eat everybody. And normally that's I kind of don't like that, but for this it kind of works cuz it's hilarious. Somebody will be in their bedroom and Kong will just reach through the window, come here, and
Yes.
and just
Yes. You see a
fling
big
him.
monkey. You see a big monkey hand coming through the window. Like, yo, what is that?
Like, there will be parts where he'll rip somebody out of a home, throw them on the ground, stomp on them, and then destroy their house right after that. Like, insult to injury after that. It it's wild. It is a wild movie. Again, it was made in 1933. It's a little dated, sure. But it is so entertaining. It delivers way better on the monster mayhem to me than Godzilla does. What are your thoughts on the original King Kong?
So, I've been a Godzilla fan, and I always say Godzilla over Kong. And this movie made me change my tune. I watched this movie for the first time for this review, and I was flabbergasted. I did not. I was not expecting what happens to happen. Like you said, it's kind of got certain issues as far as character depth and development and things like that, but it's so entertaining. Like the things that happen, and it has a pretty tight runtime, as far as the three act structure that we have, and it has a very strong three act structure. I really enjoyed that three act structure, knowing, this is okay, this is the climax, this is, the beginning, this is the middle. I really enjoy strong three act structure films like that, so I appreciate that. Technically, this film, like I said in the past review that we did, I love seeing these practical effects, even if they're like models. You see model airplanes flying and stuff like that. I just love seeing these practical effects and how they made the film back then in the 30s. I think this is the oldest movie I've ever seen. I could be wrong,
Well,
but
the
I think
Universal
it's
monster movies are a little older.
even Invisible Man. I think I haven't
I
seen
think
all
that
of
was
them.
30s. That was
I
30s,
haven't
but
seen all of them.
I know Dracula is like
Dracula's
20s, I think.
okay, okay. Well, it's close to one of the
Okay.
oldest movies I've ever seen. And just the filmmaking and the style and stuff is very interesting to see to me. But overall, this movie I loved it because it was so entertaining to see Kong and what he does on the island, what he does when he gets off the island. I don't condone murder, but the the mayhem that goes on with this monster is crazy in this movie, and it's just so dang fun.
Now that we've covered the original, let's talk about the 2005 remake titled King Kong, directed by Peter Jackson, director of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which is kind of insane to think about. The fact that he, of all people, directed a King Kong remake. But so 2005 King Kong, like I said, directed by Peter Jackson, starts a star-studded cast. You got Naomi Watts, Jack Black, Adrian Brody, Andy Serkis, both as Kong and as another character, Jamie Bell, Kyle Chandler, who is both in a Kong movie and then in the MonsterVerse. He is in the Godzilla movie, so that's kind of cool. And this tells essentially it is the same story. It is the same story of a film crew going to a deserted, uncharted island, and what they find there, leads to very deadly consequences. So I saw this right after the original film. I bought this movie, actually. I blind bought it because it was like really cheap at Best Buy on Blu-ray. And I sat down and watched it, and I don't think I was expecting the movie that it was going to be because I hadn't seen Lord of the Rings at the time. So I think this was actually no, I saw The Hobbit before. Um, this was one of the first big Peter Jackson movies that I had seen, and I really wasn't, expecting the movie that I got. The movie itself, I think, is a good remake, and it's the kind of remake that you would want where it takes what works and it expands on it. And I literally mean expands on it in this movie.
Double
But
down.
it expands on everything that you might have wanted to be expanded on. And I think for the most part it works. The positives, I think the acting across the board is amazing. This is one of my favorite Jack Black performances. It's like this, School of Rock, Kung Fu Panda. um, he's really good in this movie, and I want to see him do more serious stuff like this because I think he's really good. Naomi Watts, I think, does a good job. Adrian Brody is great. Adrian Brody normally always shows up to work. I like Kyle Chandler a lot in this movie too. Um, the special effects, I think, for the most part, are pretty good. Um, on Kong, I think they're flawless, pretty much. There are a lot of close-ups with him, and you're like, bro, is that a shot from 2024? Like, wow. Um, and then there's some other creatures that show up that I think for the most part look pretty good. Although some of them are unfortunately dated. There's a lot of green screen and effects that kind of like blend together and they don't really look great. Also, he drops the frame rate a lot. I don't like that. That got annoying very quickly. I don't know why he did that. I do think it's a very good movie and it's a commendable effort for a remake. How often will I revisit it? I don't know. You know, Maybe if I'm in the mood to watch a more grand and epic version of the original, I'll go back to this. But more than likely, I'm just gonna watch the original because it's shorter and it cuts to the chase pretty quickly. What are your thoughts on the 2005 remake?
So this is also a first. Well, I wouldn't say it's a first time watch because I did see it when I was younger, back in 2005. I did watch this film, but I was a kid. I was in fifth grade, so I was like all I remembered from this movie is it's too long, and I didn't have my cinema brain, and it wasn't on. So, going back to watch this film again after watching the original, I'm kind of glad that I watched it back to back, but it also showed some flaws in it. And you mentioned the biggest flaw is that it is too long, and just this is just like an example, but in the original, we get maybe 10-15 minutes, and then we're on the ship. And then we get to Skull Island, like pretty much right away, like maybe 15-20 minutes into the original. It takes an hour here to get actually get to Skull Island and see King Kong. So like the first hour of this film, we don't see Kong. It is a lot of building, and there are parts that I do appreciate, but also could be condensed. Um, like you said, the acting across the board, I really, really enjoy. Adrian Brody specifically, he always shines, and in this film, he shines. This is a different role from Jack Black. We don't usually get serious roles from him, and he did a really good job. Of course, he has those like little comedic bits and stuff here and there, but he really took this role seriously. And he wasn't just acting like a goofball like we usually see him, so I really appreciated that. I didn't really have a whole lot of issues with CGI in this film. The green screen was a little spotty in some areas for me, especially on Skull Island. Other than that, the beginning, it wasn't really much green screen to be had, and then in the third act, didn't really have much issues with the green screen. But really, when we were on Skull Island, it kind of like was a little spotty here and there. That T Rex fight, oh my gosh, we had like 3 against 1, and this man was bodying all the T Rexes, man, and I loved that. It was very entertaining. I loved all that stuff. Um, as far as like just breaking down Skull Island though, and the amount of time that we're there, it was a little too much for me. I felt like we could have condensed Skull Island more than the first act and the third act. First act and third act, I feel like were pretty solid. Skull Island could have been condensed a little bit, and I think I would have given it a higher score. As far as a remake is concerned, I really, really dug it. I had my cinema brain on, and Peter Jackson was in his bag with the cinematography. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoy King Kong 2005.
As do I. So let's get into comparing our two behemoths, and we are going to start with the similarities between the two. And this section is actually going to be kind of short
Hmm.
because they're pretty much the same movie in
Yeah.
terms of the story and the
Hmm.
sequence of events. There are some things added in the remake, but for the most part, it's pretty much beat for beat.
Hmm.
The same thing. There are actually like you could just like Insomnia, you could put some of these sequences side by side, and they're the same thing, which is
Hmm.
not a bad thing. The ending is also like literally the same.
The
I think
same
it
exact.
ends on the same line
Yep.
too.
Hmm.
Um, and I also the characters are the same, pretty much.
Hmm.
They're all the same, same names and all that, same roles and all that. So let's move on to the differences. And the main difference is that there are more scenes added to this the remake. Um we get a lot of character building in the first act on the ship with all of our cast, and then the second act it adds way more scenes. Like in the original we had some of these action sequences that we get, but in the remake I feel like they developed them and actually made them full blown action sequences. Like the T-Rex fight in the original, it happens, but it's not really a fight. It's just kind of Kong folding the dinosaurs in like 2 seconds because that's
Hmm.
all they could do. Here we actually get a real T-Rex fight, and it
Hmm.
is again, it's just amazing. If you have not seen this movie, just go and watch that fight. It is one of the greatest monster
It's
fights put
dope.
to cinema. So moving on to what we think is the definitive version. Um, we have the same answer for
Hmm.
this one. But AJ liked the remake more than I do. But we both enjoy the remake. But I think we can definitively say that the original King Kong 1933 is the definitive King Kong version and King
Yes,
Kong
sir.
movie. I think it is the tightest, the most fast paced, and definitely the most entertaining. The remake has some definitely amazing qualities to it. The filmmaking, technically, that movie is flawless for the most part. It is really, really good. But I think when it boils down to it, it's which one I would watch first.
Hmm.
And no question, it's the original because of just how much shorter it is and how much faster it gets to the meat and potatoes, if you will.
Hmm. True.
So that is going to do it for this episode of Originals versus Remakes. Thank you guys so much. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on the bell for all notifications for future Nerd Talk videos and live streams. Our next installment in this series will be next month, where we will be covering The Omen in preparation for the first Omen releasing at the beginning of the month. We will be talking about the original Omen film and the 2006, yes, 2006 remake. Um, and we hope you guys enjoy that. That one should be interesting to say the least, especially with this guy's take on the original for Omen. But yeah, once again, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, and we will see you on the next episode of Originals versus Remakes.